All right, I think we'll get started. The meeting is officially on and being recorded, and I think we're good to go. We're going to introduce ourselves and talk today about proactive security and some of the strategies that you can engage in to make sure that you're being every kind of secure that you want to be. I'm James Segil. I'm the president and co-founder of OpenPath. We are a physical access control company that makes a solution that allows you to unlock the door to your office with your phone. It's a cloud-based technology and integrates with great video surveillance and camera technology from Cisco Meraki. And so with that, I'll introduce next George. George?
Hi, everyone. My name is George Bentinck. I'm the Director of Product Management for our IoT and Edge Intelligence group, which includes cameras, sensors, and all those types of things. This is my, I think, third one with James. Looking forward to having lots of questions. We had some great questions on the webinar series so far. So let's keep that going. We're going to try and answer them live as we go through. So that would be my one ask. So
excellent. And Cam, we'll let you.
I'm Cam Marie. Yeah, I'm a senior developer and tech lead at PlaceOS. We're an integration platform that connects to different network-connected devices and services in workplaces, connecting them up to make seamless user experiences and getting more value out of these IoT and other network-connected devices in buildings.
Brilliant. Well, let's move on to the next slide. And what we're going to cover today are a number of different topics around the sort of security posture that exists for many of us today and ways that we can take advantage of new technology, new approaches to upgrade that posture and be more relevant to some of the threats that are out there. We'll also talk about some use case examples that we've all seen with our customers and our partners in the marketplace to help illustrate some of the ways that we can better protect ourselves. And of course, to George's point, we really want to have a conversation with all of you. So please use the Q&A feature to give us questions that we can answer around security issues that have come up that you want help with, topics that might be relevant for us to discuss as we sort of go through this all together. And so with that, if we go on to the next slide. The theme across all of these presentations that we've been doing is how we've kind of moved into a new technology platform, right? Moving from on-premise to cloud, taking advantage of new postures that are out there, mitigating a lot of the new threats that are out there. And one of the themes that is, most prevalent is trying to be more proactive than reactive. And so I think we all understand reactive means dealing with attacks as they happen and trying to sort of not just mitigate them, but also find a way to understand exactly where you're being attacked, the vectors on which you're being attacked, how to better sort of block them. And proactive security postures mean that you're actually changing the nature and the culture of your security practice. And that means insinuating a proactive approach into every part of your organization and how they think about protecting the network, the hardware, the assets, and the people from various threats that we're all presented with. So it's a lot more of a defensive posture, but it really means a lot of proactive work and strategy. And we're going to talk about some of the best practices in putting a proactive approach together in our presentation today. So if we move on.
Cool.
Great. Cam, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of sort of the security landscape today?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working in the smart building industry for nearly a decade now. So it's been quite a while, and we've sort of seen a lot of these massive, multi-billion at times dollar companies setups in their buildings and how they approach access control and security in general. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about our experience with some of these, especially legacy clients, older, big companies, but sort of grounded and older companies, and how they've approached security. And then also we'll get into how sort of we've bettered those solutions and come up with more secure approaches. So in our experience so far, the amount of times that we've, as I said, seen these massive companies that are running on-prem basic access control systems on a Windows server in the basement of a building is quite astonishing, almost, really. You wouldn't really expect these massive skyscrapers to have such a sort of simple system just on-prem down in the basement that's set up so that people can access different things inside the building. But it's almost frighteningly common. And some of the things we've seen, while working with these big clients and integrating with their access control systems, are things like credentials on post-it notes stuck in monitors. Not even a single time. I've seen this multiple times once we go down to the basement of the building and see the access control systems. And not only that, but the credentials on these post-it notes are often the same ones that are given to us when we integrate with these access control systems, whether it be through API access or even some of these more outdated technologies, SOAP or RPC, or possibly at times, not really any integration mechanisms at all. So it's a very sort of easy attack vector, even just looking at the physical access based off, if someone is on a tour or goes through the building, they can see passwords that would, if they were to integrate with the access control system, give them access to anything in the building, with these usernames and passwords and other credentials. Other things we've seen is sort of, again, almost frightening security protocols when it comes to different user flows, like onboarding new users to access control systems. So I've just given a little example here of, again, something we've seen many times in the industry when it comes to, say, onboarding a new tenant in a building. So, a big company signs up for a few floors in a building and a long tenancy. They need the users, the staff of that company to have access to the different rooms and access to the building. The process for this, it's manual, it's slow, and it's prone to attack vectors and having weak points in security. So you'll often see the security team will just get an email. They'll have, oh, here's a new user that we need to add. They need access to this floor or this room, or etc. Maybe it's a CSV that gets imported, and everything from there is manual. So we have the security team receiving the email. They'll go into their outdated access control solutions and manually create the users, or manually import the users, generate the card numbers, pick up a whole stack of blank cards, and by hand add the NFC, access to each of those cards, and then send them upstairs to the users. So anyone with a even minor security background can see multiple vectors of attack. You could spoof an email to the security team saying, hey, my name's Cam Reeves and I work for this company. Please provide me access to this. You could also have vectors, not so much attack vectors, but places where security is lacking due to human error. So let's say someone sets the wrong access control, someone puts the wrong NFC details on a card. These are all definite possibilities and things that we've seen in the industry before. So, in terms of outdated security environments, it's very prevalent. We've found. And that's just with our experience being an integration platform, not specifically an access control provider.
Gotcha.
So another thing I just wanted to discuss, sort of leading on from that, is the amount of, again, like larger companies and really companies that almost should know better, that are really tied towards these on-prem access control systems. They have them sitting down on a Windows server in the basement, and they think that this is, more secure than cloud-based solutions. Now, as you can see here, it's something that's slowly becoming less prevalent in the industry. But again, it's these often, larger, older, big companies that believe, oh, if it's on-prem, it's safer. So I wanted to discuss a few little points about just what we've found in our work in the industry and why that's pretty much an unfounded belief. And it's this idea usually that centers around simply, it's almost a humanistic aspect of, hey, my servers, I can touch my server, I can go and see it. It's in the basement. We have the keys to the door that the server is in. Therefore, it's safer than a cloud server off in some data center somewhere, which really isn't true. I like to use the analogy of storing money in a box under your bed versus a bank. You might think, oh, I know where the box under my bed is. I have the key to the box under my bed. So why don't I put all of my savings into that box? But anyone here is probably smart enough to know that generally your money's going to be safer in a bank with proper security protocols, proper just general knowledge of the people handling the money. So it's very similar to that idea. You know, your Windows server with access control is really just a box under your bed storing your money. When it comes to cloud-based solutions, we're always pushing our new clients to go for, sorry, when it comes to access control, we're always pushing our new clients to go for cloud-based solutions. There's a multitude of different reasons. I've just listed a few here. A big one is instead of getting one username and password that gives you access to the whole access control system, meaning if it was, compromised, someone could get access to every single room in the building. They're able to give, finer grained permissions. You can have individual logins on your cloud provider, and those logins can have very small amounts of permissions, or they can have much more global access permissions. The security patches and updates when you have a cloud provider are just generally done faster, if not as soon as they're released. And there's not as much of a sort of worry about having somebody physically accessing your building. So another sort of almost ironic situation we've encountered is, again, there's a server in the on-prem server in the basement of the building. The door to that server is controlled by the access control system, and the access control system is behind the door. So you have this chicken and egg situation. If someone breaks through the door, they get access to the whole building. If someone, like through software, breaks into your access control system, they can open that door and walk in and have physical access to your server running it all. So there's, as I said, there's multiple reasons why we always push for a cloud-based solution for access control and for most servers, really. But these are just some of the ones that we've come across while working in the industry.
So Cam, it seems like a lot, if you click forward next, it seems like a lot of the best enabled technologies are integrated together, right? So the whole idea of if you're going to have a stack of capabilities, right, whether it's video surveillance, access control, building management, occupancy management, visitor management, you got to kind of integrate them together. You got to tie them together. And there's a lot of benefit that you get from that. And I think that's part of this proactive posture. So maybe if you click on the next slide, do you want to kind of go through a bit of, how this is, or I'm happy to, George and I talk about it as well.
I'll speak a little bit on this, just again, from our experience in the industry. I think your points on automation and tying automation to security is something that people are often unaware of, but automation is heavily tied not just to attack vectors of security, but again, also to the elimination of human error. So, a great example for video surveillance is, again, you've got a security team in the basement, you've got their access control server, maybe they have a bunch of screens with all the security cameras on there. If those people in the basement are monitoring those screens to make sure someone doesn't walk into an area, it's probably going to be more efficient both from a resource perspective and more efficient in terms of actually being more secure to have, say, some sort of recognition, whether it's facial recognition or people counting or analytics looking at that security footage, possibly on top of having a security team looking at it, but the automation to say, hey, my video surveillance detected movement in this area or detected a face that isn't supposed to be in this area. That level of automation is providing you security as well, because it's the security of eliminating human errors and eliminating the need for someone who, maybe like the security guard drops his coffee or something, goes to pick it up, comes back up, and the person who wasn't supposed to be in that area has just walked past. Automation will pick up on that, whereas a human may not. That's something definitely an area we've found around integrating different services together and also providing automation to enable security.
So I think it's almost wishful thinking to be like, wow, the worst chance is they bend down, pick up their coffee or whatever. The sort of research shows that people just watching video start to blank out and not really notice anything after like 20 or 30 minutes. So it's really a struggle for all of that data to be like comprehensively reviewed by real people. So automation helps eliminate a lot of that, the human error. And I think the general theme we see with this integration of data sources is additional context. Because the problem is, like, how do you know that thing is actually of relevance? And there's this general theme in a lot of systems, both physical security and also digital security or like software systems of alert fatigue. You just get so many alerts. You're just like, well, I'm going to do nothing about them because I've just got way too many. And so like putting effort into making those better is really valuable. And one of the significant ways of doing that is you bring in other data sets because they add context to that event, which may make it more relevant for you to pay attention to. And that can go into the decision making for, well, no, it should be an alert. One of the things we thought about from the Meraki camera perspective is, okay, it's still possible you can get lots of alerts. Like it doesn't really matter to some extent. If you have a very busy environment, even with additional context, you could end up with more alerts than you would want. Like how many alerts can I as a human really deal with if I'm getting like a notification on my phone, an SMS or an email? I'm going to say I can do 20 a day. Like anything above that, no. But how do you know that's what you're going to get? And so one of the things we put quite a bit of thought into, and I think it's like an interesting way to think about this problem is, how do we make sure people can actually configure these tools to be useful? And so what we do is we take all the historical analytics data for like motion, people detection, like the other pieces of context. And as you configure your alert for what is going to be important to you, it gives you an expectation of what the number of alerts you're going to get is based on the previous weeks of data. So our hope is that you go in as a user and you like configure this interface to get alerts for something that's relevant. And if it says on average you'll get 500 emails a day, you're probably not going to click save. You're hopefully going to make a different choice. Like, okay, I need to like get this query a little tighter. I need to really only cover that small part of the area. Okay, I need to make sure it's also detecting like people, not just motion. That's why. And now I'm getting 5 emails a day on average based on the last week of data. So also enabling users of these systems to make good choices while also having these additional pieces of automation and like information to provide context. It's like a total system for making sure like you've got something useful at the end of the day, because otherwise we're back to that reactive system. It's like something bad has happened and now you're going to go back and look for the evidence of what it was.
So Cam, if you swap to the next slide, I think, illustrating George's point is that if you don't have the right hardware in place in your building to collect that information so that, a smart video analytics system can overlay on top of it and give you that, right alerting data, or that a smart access control system can, make sure that you're future-proofed in terms of being able to leverage your face at some point in time to help improve the experience that you have at the door, or capture that access event because you got a video of the person as they're coming through the door. I think that's one of the key sort of opportunities that I think is presented to the marketplace today, which is investing in technology that future-proofs your building. Obviously, both the Meraki and the OpenPath capabilities, I think, do that because it's cloud enabled, so it's constantly adopting new features and capabilities in real time and mitigating a lot of the zero-day threats that we become, vulnerable to because of security vulnerabilities out there. But also making sure that as new use cases come into place, the hardware that you have in the building is a smart sensor that can, change and dynamically adjust to whatever's going on, whether it's COVID and a pandemic, or whether it's, active shooters, or whether it's workplace and work time shifting so that people come into the office at different times of day and you need a different surveillance and monitoring capability because the schedules are all off and people are now having to do it remote. So maybe some of the, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say over the last 18 months or so, we've seen just like an incredibly large change in how people use physical spaces in a way that none of us could really have anticipated would happen. And I think one of the themes out of that period of time that we've gone through and are still going through in terms of how people are using our technology is the most important thing is not a specific feature supporting some type of pandemic situation, because what we need changes so quickly. It's flexibility and like the ability to adapt the technology to your needs. And this is like one of the great things I think about the companies represented here is this cloud-centric approach means you're not worried about infrastructure. You're more worried about the outcomes, and being sort of modern tech companies that have, and I like Cam's slide about SOAP APIs, getting some nasty flashbacks of working in the telco industry there, that you can actually adapt these platforms and these technologies and integrate them not only with each other, but with other technologies to get to the outcome you didn't know you needed and you hadn't planned for. Wasn't in your RFP when you went to pick something, but because of how they're built, they are flexible and adaptable to the changing needs of how physical spaces are being used now. And I think how we understand the day is also going to be radically different a few months and probably a few years from now. And so that's been the sort of recurring theme amongst all the things that we've seen with people deploying our technology is like adaptability and flexibility of their investment is key. So I'm interested, Cam, to hear your thoughts on that from a more developer centric perspective.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of that I've come across is, I might even jump to the next slide, is the ability to integrate between devices and services, and how important that is, because it's really the logic that connects things that creates that flexibility that you're talking about. We've generally find that that's, you already have as you said, the infrastructure, the services, they already exist. And we're going to look at some examples of this that we've found in the industry. But it's the ability to take the existing infrastructure, as long as it has an ease of integration, and to connect those pieces of the infrastructure, those devices, the network connected devices, the business management systems, the user management systems, and just physical hardware, your turnstiles and locks and things, and integrate those together. The way that you integrate those together and the logic surrounding that is what allows that flexibility. So a great example of this, especially with COVID, and again, it's kind of security. It's almost security against your own staff, for example, is there's a lot of offices that have caps on the amount of people that can enter certain areas of the office. And the ability to, in the past, the way they might do it is like a person standing at the door, clicking a little clicker and saying, one person entered, 2 person entered, 1 person left, down to 1. But in reality, we have sensors, we've got video cameras. Like if you have a smart lock with a video camera coming in, you have user management systems, you can integrate these things and you can have logic that says, okay, if there's X number of people entering this section of the office, then lock the door, and then take the digital signage and display a piece of information that says this area is now closed to excess staff because of capacity limits due to Corona. So I do, in terms of flexibility and adapting to new and changing environments like COVID, but like anything that we see coming into the future, I'm sure there'll be more. It's the ability to link up these devices and services with logic that really, I think, creates that flexibility.
And I think you hear on a number of like this idea of occupancy, and like different countries have like rapidly changing legislation about how many people can be in a certain type of venue, and then like a few months later that's also different. And the most adaptable, flexible thing you could do is put a human there. But they are expensive and you want them doing other things. So we've seen projects where this ability to like understand the space, not only just because you want security cameras, but because you also want to ensure like mask compliance, because that's a local piece of legislation, or you want to ensure occupancy compliance. The return on investment turnaround time for some of these versus hiring people or losing productivity from your staff because they're doing it is in months, even at national scale deployment of the technology. And like that's awesome. But you're not going to do it if it takes 3 years to deploy, because like you have no idea if you're going to need that then. So we're back to this adaptability and flexibility and like repurposing of the technology, because our customers that have done that have done so hoping that when the pandemic as we know it is no longer as severe and we have a greater sense of normality, they can use it for more normal things. They can look at, okay, well, this particular product in our retail environment is more interesting than others, or okay, this is the particular journey path, or just loss prevention, like trying to limit like product loss and shoplifting within a retail environment, and so on. Now, I do see we have a question from John. So Cam and James, quick detour so I can take a question. I feel like I'll probably take this one unless.
Yeah,
do you want me to stop sharing, or you're good?
No, I'm all good. I'll leave it on there. So I'm going to read John's question out so everyone can see it. I think it's a really interesting one. It's one I've been asked a few times, so I'm going to go into it hopefully in a couple of minutes of detail. So John's question is: there is a lot of talk in the security camera industry about facial recognition, but as a school, what would be really interesting would be to have cameras that could do weapon recognition. So if a student is walking down the hall and shows a friend they brought a knife to school, could a camera see and detect the knife and alert security? Or if someone is on campus with a gun, could the camera identify the gun and alert security? This is a really intriguing topic because I know it's one of great interest to many people. There's obviously concerns around sort of potential active shooter or violence at schools and mitigating that. But this is one of the really, I think, potentially dangerous areas of use of technology. So computer vision based analytics on using things like deep learning is really powerful technology, but it does have some pretty strict limitations. And even the state of the art of what we can do today, anywhere in the world with anyone, is not 100% accurate, nor is anything ever really going to be 100% accurate. And you actually also need to think of it not just in accuracy, but in like a couple of terms. So it's like true positive rate and true negative rate. And one of the examples I've used in conversations with customers is this idea of wanting to know if someone is bringing in like an assault rifle, like some weapon like that. And what if it's an umbrella? Like, how accurately can you get your computer vision model to know that what you're bringing in is actually an umbrella and not a rifle? Or if it's a rifle and you classify it as an umbrella, what do you do then? And so you end up in these situations where if you're like hyper sensitive to what it could be as a computer vision algorithm, you might accidentally alert too many times on it being a rifle when it's actually an umbrella. And in that situation, you could end up with someone who's preparing a lethal response to someone walking into school with an umbrella, which is obviously something you do not want at all. Or you get so many alerts that people stop paying attention, so that when someone finally does walk in with a weapon or something like that, you don't pay attention to it. And the maths just sort of unfortunately doesn't work in our favor here, which is cameras can be, say, 99% accurate, but when they're seeing hundreds or thousands of people an hour, and you have 300 or 400 cameras in a school district, inevitably you'll start getting too many alerts for you to really pay too much attention to. The final part of it is cameras can only potentially detect what they can see. And you get huge amounts of occlusion with cameras. So that's things walking in front of other things that are like partly obscured, like just putting it under your coat or something like that will completely defeat a multi-million-dollar system that can do this. And so we have a lot of school customers, a lot of school districts, higher education customers, and this is a question we've been asked. So we're like, well, what could we do that would really help with these type of like emergency response situations? And we went and spoke to school districts, and we went and spoke to first responders, like the police. And ultimately what they want is very quick access to real-time information to make decisions. And so that's what we focused on. And that's, can I get you a link to video so you can see inside a building or down a corridor as fast as possible with no software, and you can use it on any platform? So can I SMS you a link and you can look in the school and you can like work out whether or not you need to go do something or help someone, and we can do that in like less than 30 seconds? Because that seemed to be the thing that was the common theme amongst the people that like are the true experts about how to deal with these unfortunate scenarios is, we want information as fast as possible to make decisions so we can decide what to do correctly. And that's what we've focused on building. So I can safely say we are not going to ever build any type of weapon detection technology, because not only is it very hard, it's very likely to be wrong, and it's very easy to circumvent because you can just hide the things with some other type of object like a coat. So hopefully that answered your question, John. A little bit of a deep dive there, but I think it's a very interesting topic, and also shows some of the limitations of AI technology, which marketing worldwide is hyped up, but the reality is it has limitations like everything else.
So I might build on that response with a little bit of a perspective as well, which is, if you think about, there's no single silver bullet for helping to identify and prevent an active shooter. It's a combination of a lot of business process. It's a combination of using technology in the right way, transparency, and instant access to information. And so when you think about the integration story that we've been talking about, where combining your technologies and having smart integration between all of your security capabilities is going to help you respond more quickly and more accurately with less false positives to any kind of situation. I think that's what comes in handy. So for instance, to the degree that you have lockdown capabilities, right, which is something that, we've spent a lot of time investing in so that anybody with the app on their phone can lock down a section or an entire area within the building rather than having to try to run into the hallway and find the lockdown kill button and hit it, right? So you can be hiding and sheltering out of place and be able to do that. And then also having the ability for those triggers to then send outside of the firewall links to video that show you what's happening in those lockdown affected, impacted areas. So the idea of combining all of your technologies so that your panic buttons, your door locks, your video surveillance, and a sort of worked through process with first responders in your neighborhood so that they can receive the information accurately, that's the important thing. And to, I think George's point, there's so many false positives could happen if you rely too much on trying to determine if that's a gun versus an umbrella, or to try to understand if that was a car backfiring versus an actual, sound of a bullet, that many of the technologies that have been kind of hyped up in the world are difficult to deploy successfully. And all of the experts that we've talked to also on the OpenPath side talk about how if you can have a process in place that is really well thought through with transparency and instant communication around all the data, you're going to be much more successful at responding quickly to any event that's happening.
I might even just jump in there with a point that we found just in general with security and even other areas, is the other side of it is when you do have this integration of these technologies alongside human interaction as a complement to it rather than substitute, you can really turn this reactive security into proactive security by looking at past events and taking analytics and insights from them. So you could say, okay, well, we had a situation where a student brought something to school, let's say, as you said, we were able to use these integrations of these different technologies to react to it. You can look at what was the reaction time for that, how fast, and what exactly were the protocols that were undertaken when that happened. And you can gather that data from these systems, these integrated systems, and you're turning this, what is, as in this situation, it's going to be pretty heavily a reactive solution because the things that George says and other reasons, you can turn it into proactive by saying, okay, we know what's happened last time and we have the data from our devices and services. Let's use that to prepare ourselves for the future, which again, it's not even specific to security. This can be applied across the board really with any integratable devices.
Yeah, and before we keep going, we had another question that came in. This is from David Pack, and he was asking, does the OpenPath Video Reader Pro integrate with Iron Young's Video, which I believe is a video analytics software package, or other third-party AI platforms like Meraki and others? And so, we have a very tight integration between the Cisco Meraki video surveillance platform and cameras and the OpenPath access control system. And then the video reader that we have is actually, it's working towards ONVIF compliance. So we're working on that now, but that's the sort of standard that we're using. So certainly an opportunity there to have that feed, link off to a third-party system and for video analytics to overlay over that. Yeah. So please keep the questions coming. In the meantime, I think, Cam, maybe we can get into some of the examples that you put together from some of your customers.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm just going to discuss a few of the examples of how we've looked to overcome some of these more manual, non-integrated protocols and flows, and how we've sort of enabled the user experience both just with general efficiency, but also with higher levels of security by either automating or semi-automating these flows by using different devices and services that can be easily integrated with, like OpenPath. So the first example is a relatively simple one, but it relates back to my previous slide about many of these security protocols we've seen for onboarding users. These days, the vast majority of larger corporations, especially, but even smaller ones, have user management systems. The common ones being Office 365, G Suite from Google, but you're going to have some sort of system where you've got all your users stored and they're going to have their emails and everything's in there. You also have other sort of levels of information about the user inside these solutions. So Office 365, you can define obviously the job role of a user. You can define access to certain levels. You can say this person works at this level of this building. And you can have calendar events, again, whether it's any of the larger user management providers, they all have calendars. You got Google Calendar, you got your Outlook, etc. So when we looked at this initially, a while ago now, we looked at how people are onboarding people in their access control systems. And as I previously mentioned, it's a very manual, slow process. The security team gets an email, they enter it in, I went over it before. So here's just the first example, super simple one. You've already got all your users in, say, Office 365. So connecting these different services and devices mean that we can automate the process, which is both more efficient and saves the company money, less resources used, but it's also more secure because you're eliminating that ability for either human error or the weak point in the flow, which might be that, as I said, the security team could receive a spoofed email from a hacker that says, hey, give Joe Bloggs access to this building, and then they just do it. So the flows we look at here is integrate with Office 365 through something like Graph API, grab all the calendar events from different users. Then you have properly integratable solutions like OpenPath door locks. You can connect all these together and say, okay, well, if a user has a calendar event and it's in this room, we know what this room is in, say, OpenPath. We can easily automate the flow to say every day, set the access for these staff members for this room from 9 till 11 or whenever their meeting is. And you're really just eliminating that requirement to have all these manual processes, and you're eliminating the user interaction there. So the first example, very simple one, but it's a great example for businesses looking to streamline onboarding processes for new users and new tenants in buildings. But again, it's a pretty simple one. So I'll move on to some more.
And actually, Cam, just real quick, reminded me of a use case that we have right now where we have folks that are actually using health attestation forms for people coming to work that have to first fill out a form that says, I don't have a cough, I don't have a temperature, I'm vaccinated, I'm tested, whatever. And they've set it so that the credential doesn't authenticate until someone has filled out that health attestation form. And so every single day it resets so that your credential won't work until you filled out that form and said the right things. And so I think you can use the automation, not just for your mainstream sort of, hey, I come in from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, but also to flex and adapt to whatever's happening in the world. Pandemic response being a good example.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I mean, if anything, it again highlights that. So like, let's say that they were doing that with a physical piece of paper or a form that you fill out and say, I don't have a cough, or what are your symptoms, write them down. It eliminates, somebody who's friends with the person reading the form that says, oh, their cough isn't too bad, they can come in, or they can't read their handwriting, or, if it's digitized and then integrated with the access control solution, the ability and, the chance of having an error or having some sort of, it's probably not going to be an attack vector in that example, but it much more eliminates something going wrong. And in this, day and age, you really don't want someone inside your building who, is showing COVID symptoms and things like that. So yeah, that's a really good example. So yeah, the second example is a bit more exciting. It's also utilizing Meraki's people finding through, I believe it's via AP triangulation. It's something that we've used a whole lot in the past 5 to 10 years, I think, however long it's been out. Is the people finding ability usually through the MAC address on a phone or a laptop. And using that we generally will create SVG maps and have sort of XY coordinates on that map to say, hey, this user's phone is triangulating to this spot. So there's your device, your system, Meraki with people finding. Again, you've got access control that's easily integratable, locks, smart locks, generally on doors and entrances. They're all also mapped against the same SVG or whatever maps the people staff tracking is using. So you can take all these things in the environment and say, okay, well, why don't we have it so that if somebody is close enough to the door, so you use some simple maths, get the XY coordinate of the staff, XY coordinate of the door, calculate the distance between them. If it's in a threshold and the user has the correct rights, open up that door. Obviously, it's not going to be used for every single example. You're not going to just want to have a door open when someone walks past it, or maybe they have to be standing there for a certain amount of time. But again, it's that ease of automation that allows users or staff, in this example, to easily access stuff without having to, take out a phone or use a more archaic, swipe card or something like that, or even a physical key, God help you, But again, it's something it's quite good because it's really showing these different services, especially from the speakers today, how the services from their companies can be easily integrated with each other and how important that is for creating these user experiences.
So Cam, oh yeah, go ahead, George.
I was just going to say, going back to my theme of like context, I like the wireless piece here, because that's obviously not my area today, but I used to work on extensively, which is the wireless location services. And so then the question comes up, well, should I have cameras for locationing, because we can do the people detection and give you location from cameras, or do we use wireless, or what is it? And what we're looking at is like a set of technologies for locationing, and some of them have different properties. So cameras can be pixel level accurate, like very, very precise in a way that you just can't do with Wi-Fi, but they can't see through walls, which is a problem in some places. And also, you're not going to want to put cameras in sensitive locations. Like, one of the things we've seen come up recently is people are very interested in bathroom cleaning rosters, and especially in like very big campuses. For example, the Cisco campus, there's a vast number of cleaners and there is a vast number of bathrooms, but there's many less people than there were before. So they want to clean them more regularly, but are they going to go clean like 40 buildings worth of bathrooms at the same schedule as before? No, they need some intelligence, they need some insight. And you're not going to want to have cameras watching the bathrooms, because it's not what people want, obviously. It's a pretty clear example there. So combining things such as our door open close sensor, which gives you an indication of like in-out traffic and just terms of number of times the doors are open with things like Wi-Fi, and then bring those into other systems. In this case, a system which organizes the sort of cleaning rotas for the staff. Those type of things like give a lot more context to the decisions you're trying to make. And I think a really obvious one for me, as we've talked about here, is bringing these data points into like the access control story and enabling that to be smarter with these additional pieces of information.
So let's real quick answer one of the questions that came in about the Meraki OpenPath integration. So this is from Joseph. It says, so the OpenPath access control and Meraki integration appears to be through the OpenPath user interface and not the Meraki dashboard, correct? If this is the case, does this remove camera access through Meraki Dash and move it exclusively to OpenPath, or is it shared between the two, with the cams being available in both the Meraki Dash and the OpenPath UI? And it is both. So in the integration, OpenPath has used Meraki's excellent APIs to actually pull in the video cam footage and thumbnails into our dash, so that you can be in the OpenPath control panel and see all the video associated with access events. And then you can click on that video, and what it actually does is it launches the Meraki dashboard. So you go straight to that specific video that you clicked on. You can then see it, and it's popped up in a separate window. And then you can also log directly into your Meraki control panel, and you can see all the video as well there. So you have the ability to tie in the access event directly in the OpenPath integration with the logs and all that, as well as just see all of your video independently in the Meraki dashboard.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of highlight some of the reasons we've like focused on that is in discussion with James and a lot of our users, quite a lot of activities start from the badge event, or like that entry event. And then you're like, well, did someone follow them in? Was it really George, or was it someone holding George's badge? Like, I need that context. And so you go look at the cameras. But then once you go and look at the cameras, then you're like, okay, I need that clip, that like quick look in the OpenPath interface. How do I go further? And then we have like the search tools and video-centric tools for like manipulating video data across like, say, 10 cameras at once inside the Meraki Vision portal, which is a video-specific interface, all through the dashboard. So like, as you then pivot to wanting more like video-centric tools, you end up in the Meraki interfaces. But as James said, they're available in both.
Yeah. And then if we want, maybe we'll just keep going with the questions a bit here. Robert asked, how does OpenPath work in a residential property environment? I guess they're using Dormakaba, which according to him is not the greatest and is not allowing us to do the central door management for multiple residential properties. And does OpenPath support existing equipment, and can it be utilized with battery operated door locks? So the short answer is OpenPath has a great integration with wireless locks. Today it's with Allegion, the Schlage wireless locks, the NDE commercial grade series. We use their gateway to be able to communicate in real time with those locks. So you can use your phone to have a Bluetooth magical unlock experience that is a very quick and powerful unlock with the Schlage locks. And then those can all be centrally managed as an additional door that's added to your cloud managed access control system. And so you do have all that sort of multi-site capability to manage doors, add them, take them off, apply schedules, and do everything that you would want to do all through a central control and command dashboard. So it is with the Allegion Schlage locks, and unfortunately not the Dormakaba one. So we wouldn't be able to retroactively apply it to those, but to the degree that you're interested in the Schlage locks, by all means, we do offer that there. And there's another question from Adam about, could you in theory create a map of where all of the employees are in the building at any given time? And so I guess I'll put that out there. You kind of could, I guess.
Oh yeah,
I thought this question for Cam.
Yeah, we do that. Well, not only can you, we have many a time. So I mean, obviously there's sensitive areas that, like a big one is, as previously mentioned, people in the bathrooms and things like that. You're generally not going to want to track them when they go in there. But yeah, we've done a whole bunch of integrations actually that so we create these nice SVG maps, and then we'll either a big one is desk related, so because it's tracking devices, so you can have a map that has a dot for every person on the map if you wanted. To be honest, it's never been a heavily requested use case, just because they're not gaining that much insight or data just from seeing every single person. But what we have done is, and this is a very common use, is to, again, integrate with user management systems. So, say Office 365 or Google or G Suite. So we get a list of all users in the firm, and then we have these SVG maps that are displayed either on kiosks at the base level or at the level that you're going to. So someone coming in for a meeting, especially in a hot desking scenario, can come in and say, oh, I need to find, Jill Bloggs, and she's at level 3. So you go in and type her name, Jill, select her on the kiosk, and the SVG map is displayed, and her dot is shown where she is. So you can say, oh, she's at level 4 in this region of the building, and go over to there. Like, that's more of a common use case. Again, you could easily, if you want to just have, like, maybe for administrative or management purposes, an interface that shows every single person in the whole company on different levels of the map. It's just generally, it's a bit much of a data overload. Another one is, as I sort of touched upon before, is having hot spots and hot zones. So defining, it's very easy on an SVG map to define essentially divs, like areas on the map, to say this is zone 1, this is zone 2, this is zone 3. If zone 1 has between 0 and 10 people in it, display it with a light green overlay on some digital signage. If it's got 20 to 50 people, give it a yellow overlay, and it's got 50 plus people, give it a red overlay. So people coming into the building, especially if they're conscious about, say, social distancing, or even just having a quiet place to work, they can come in and look at that digital signage, see that big map, and say, oh, that part's lit up red, so I know there's a lot of people there. It might not have everyone's individual dot, because you might not want to say where every single staff member is, but they know that there's a lot of people in that area of the office, and they might want to go to a different area with less people. But I mean, your specific question of, would it be possible to do? Definitely. It's something that, like, the data is all there. Meraki makes it very easy, I must say, to do. It's quite good. It's good as a developer to work with. Very easy to integrate with.
Yeah, and then Kahinde, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, asked a bunch of questions about, the OpenPath and Cisco Meraki integration, seeing some demo videos of, what it looks like and how it can be. So the best way is to set up a demo with one of our team. I sent you a link in the chat to a website where you can submit a request, and we can have one of our folks just walk you through a really nice demo of the integration and how it works. We've got some pictures up there, and they can also send you links to some other marketing collateral we've got that shows it off. But a demo would be the easiest way for you to see all the bells and whistles of how cool it is. So Cam, I know there's one more example you've got. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so the last one I was going to go into was a bit more centered around external visitor management. A lot of these examples have been with, existing staff or security teams and the protocols and flows around them. But when it comes to security, especially external visitor management, so people who aren't a member of your firm attending offices and buildings is a pretty big one. It's an area where obviously you can't just let anyone walk into the building generally. So if someone's coming in, you're going to have to expend resources as a company to sign that person in. You're going to have probably some front of house. The amount of times that the buildings we've worked on, I will walk up to the front of the desk and say, "Hi, I'm Cam Reeves. I'm here to see blah, blah." And they'll go, "Yep, 1 second." They'll get a new pass and then they'll work out what level I'm on and give me access with that pass. That's another area that, again, is both very automatable with good integration. And it's also an area where you can, mitigate these weak points in security, whether it be generally social engineering in this example, because if someone wants to come in and say, "Hey, I have a meeting with someone on this floor," it can be a lot easier to manipulate a person than if a properly set up system. So this example is, again, it's using the user management system. A lot of these are. And then it's also using, this is an actual example of a past project we've done where it's using QR readers, though I believe OpenPath has an even better solution to a QR reader, which is sort of a temporary web URL that can be sent to the external attendee that opens up on their phone or on their device, or however. I think it's a web-based solution to do essentially what the QR is doing, but with even better technology. But my experience, working on these projects was just generally to grab the calendar events, just like some of the past examples. It's pretty easy to see who's not a staff member at your calendar event. It could be as simple as looking at acceptable email domains, or there might be a checkbox in some of these newer calendar systems to say this person is external, and then having smart access control hardware of some kind, again, that you can integrate with. In this case, one is connected to the turnstiles or whatever the ability to, the security around entering the building is. So we've done a few past projects that are automating that visitor experience. We're grabbing all the calendar events. We're saying, okay, today has these external attendees for meetings. Give them access to the building for that day or the meeting's time. Generate essentially a new user in the access control system, a temporary user, give them a card and then encode it in some way, whether it is a QR code or whether it is, a newer, better web-based solution, and then email it out or SMS it out or, get it to the external attendee somehow. And then you can have a pretty seamless user experience that doesn't involve having to have interaction with front of house staff. And external attendees can attend meetings and meet up with their hosts without having to have someone, manually send them an email or even click a button that sends them an email. It's all automated, and it's all sort of it's a lot nicer experience for your external attendees. They won't have to sit in the lobby for quite as long.
Well, that's great. I know there's one more question that came in, and I'm not sure if we answered it entirely, but is there a tool that allows one to do staff location via AP triangulation now? So I don't know if that was covered when we talked about how to sort of map people, but I don't know, what is AP triangulation?
So the AP would be access point. So that's, again, it's like, because I just integrate with it, I'm pretty sure that that's at least one of the mechanisms that that Meraki use for their people tracking, is to say, hey, we've got all these access points on the roof. You only, 2 access points will tell you 2 possible locations a user can be who's connected to the 2 of them. 3 access points will give you a single location to say, okay, I bounced off these 3+ access points. I know my distance between them all. That puts me in a certain place. You obviously have to have some sort of map, of the building in some way. You can have a XY coordinate for each user, but it's not going to be a huge benefit if you don't have some sort of mapping of it. And George probably can speak to the actual technology behind this more than me.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of things about sort of Wi-Fi location. Is always very attractive because, like, you don't have to give the people a thing, and it doesn't need to see them, and you have it for like connecting your iPad anyway, so it'd be great if it does some other things, is that to get a reasonable level of performance in terms of like how precise it can be, and you shouldn't really be expecting like very precise from Wi-Fi in general, it's like a few meters type of deal, is you need to do the design to take into account that you want location services to be high quality. So to get the highest quality, as Cam was talking about, you need like a good number of access points that can hear the thing. If only one of them is hearing it, you know it's there, but you have no idea where it really is as a client device. A few of them, you can start to like triangulate where it's going to be. And the smaller the cell size, so if you're into Wi-Fi, like the broadcast signal, like having really big cells, broadcasts, is not good for your location precision. You actually want smaller cells, and this is typically what happens when you have a high density deployment. So if you're in like an environment where like there's going to be a lot of users with a lot of devices, so there's typically higher education, conference centers, that type of stuff, you have many more access points that cover a smaller area. Well, now you can get more precise location information. And so if that's not how your deployment is already designed, then you need to accept it might not be as precise as it could be elsewhere. Or if you're looking to upgrade your Wi-Fi, put in a new one, think about this as maybe an important attribute of what you want as an outcome, and get your design adapted to take that into account. But just having a few access points may not be enough, or you may be disappointed with the results.
Yeah. Hey, Cam, can you go to the very last slide just so that we put that up for folks? If you have questions and you want to follow up with any of us, we can certainly be reached. But if you go to the very last slide there, you'll see, keep going, the very end, there's some links there.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So you can get through certainly to the Meraki team on the website, the OpenPath team, and certainly the PlaceIO team. So please make sure to reach out to us. We're coming towards the end of the hour here. I know there's two more questions that came in that maybe we can sort of answer before we finish off here. One of them is, does building management have tools for disaster response, i.e. has everyone evacuated the building after a fire alarm? And so that is actually something that we work closely with building technology operators on. The idea is a mustering capability where you can have an access point that is set up outside of the building, and everyone musters in groups there and then kind of checks in with the access point using their credential. And that way you can be sure where people are. We also have the ability, using the sensor technology in the access control system and the mobile phone, to also understand who is near or close to a reader. So if you have the readers deployed in various stairwells and throughout the building, you can also have a sense of if someone is close to one of those readers. We have a report that will allow you to sort of see real-time presence based on people's credentialed users being proximate to one of our sensors. And then, of course, on a video surveillance level, having cameras installed in all the right locations and making sure that you've really gotten a very good, accurate field of view so that there's no kind of holes will give you real-time perspective on what's going on. And to George's earlier point, having a cloud-based system that allows you to view those cameras outside of the building on your mobile device from anywhere, that's super useful, so that you can be mustered outside the building and know, okay, is this hallway clear, is the stairwell clear, and visually check to make sure if your camera placement's accurate. Folks, do you guys have other thoughts to add to that?
I feel that's probably a good way to end, as we're basically at time.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for the great conversation today. It's always great to talk with you, George and Cam. It's great to have you on today. And thanks, everybody, for joining, and hope you found this helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks.